Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another video. My name is Tom, and thank you so much for joining me here on my behind the scenes channel. You can see I'm here with Kubo, and today Kubo and I are going to go on a little date, a maintenance date to be specific. I've actually backed it out of the garage, and I parked it in this strange looking spot because we're actually going to do an oil change on this. So this tractor is up for its 50-hour service, and I've already let the engine run a little bit just to get it up to I wouldn't say up to temperature, but warm enough that the oil is not as thick as it would be normally when it's cold. So just to give you a little bit of background here, Kubo is about 14 months old, 14 months since delivery, so figure maybe 15, 16 months old from manufacturing. Just over 43 hours on the clock. So, I mean, you can probably figure out the math. It takes me just under 2 hours to mow my property, so I've probably used it, I don't know, about 15, 16 times or so, and then I've mowed other people's properties with it too, just to help out the community over the last year or so. So, very fuel efficient. This is a diesel engine, so I've probably only filled it up 3 or 4 times during those 4 hours. I probably get about 10 hours of runtime on a full tank, which it's an incredible amount of, it's 5 sessions for me, and that's probably about a month and a half worth of mowing, at least my property. If I do other stuff with it, then obviously it'll affect that. But very fuel efficient. I don't have to fill it up after every chore it does, and it does things really well. One of the better investments that I've made, which says a lot, actually. So, without further ado, I'm going to pop this hood open. We'll show you what's underneath this hood, what I call a shoebox engine, because it's literally the size of a shoebox. So, let's get in on this, and I hope you guys stick around and follow on this journey. Let's do it. Okay, first and foremost, here's the 3-cylinder, 18 horsepower diesel as it stands. So this is the valve cover right here, and there's literally 3 cylinders right there. If we were on the other side, actually you could probably see them right here, are the 3 injector lines for the fuel. Little tiny alternator, little tiny starter, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But what we're going to do, and the reason why I'm on this side, oh, by the way, these blue, red, yellow, and white tubes here are hydraulic lines for a forward attachment. If I were to put a, some kind of a shovel or a digger or a bucket or something up front, you could actually plumb that in right here and have controls from the stick here, which is great. So there's a lot of expansion that can be done with this mower, both on the front and on the butt end of the mower. So it's very dirty right now because I mowed just the other day, and it was sort of wet. Everything was sticking. So I typically wait until stuff dries out, and then I just take my air hose and blow it all off. There is a honeybee right there that's trying to get my attention. So go on. Okay, now that we've taken care of that little honeybee, let's get back to this. So we're going to be pulling this guy out. This is the oil filter. It's kind of on the front of the engine. The engine in this thing is actually sitting backwards. So that's actually the back of the engine where the flywheel is. And this, where all the drive belts and fans are, is on the back of the engine, or in this case, the front. Because the Kubota sucks in air from right here and runs it across the radiator, which is right here. There's the fan, and I'm willing to bet that that fan spins backwards because it has to pull in air from the back as opposed to the front. Well, maybe it's spinning the right direction because I guess it doesn't matter which way it goes. The fan's always behind the radiator. So anyway, without further ado, let's get going here. Let's see what we got. So let me take you in here. Okay, so as I'm going through this, I'm kind of thinking to myself, if that mower deck is actually going to be in the way. And I'll show you here in a second once I unpack this knee pad, because I'm actually going to use it here to kneel down next to the mower here. We're going to see where the oil drain is. First of all, I know it's going to be on the bottom of the oil pan, but you know, that waste oil container that I got from Harbor Freight, that might be too thick to get in here, maybe. So let me kneel this down here. Hopefully there's enough light down here to see this through. Let me glue you in here because you guys are on a magnetic base. I, on the other hand, have to figure out alternate ways to look down here. Oh yeah, look at that. Oil drain plug's right here. I don't know if you can see it. Let me move you closer. Oh boy, this magnetic mount is certainly strong. But there it is. Okay. So where are we? You guys are on the ground here next to the mower. The oil pan's right here. That drain plug's right here. So I'm gonna have to see if this deck right here will allow me to slip that oil pan into it in this area, so I can open this up, drain it, maybe sit it on top of this mounting hardware here, because I'm really not in the mood to pull this deck off. So you guys got some grass on the lens. Maybe we can just clean that off, huh? So we'll see what we can do. Oh, while I'm over here, you can see the other side of the engine. I think I've shown this before on one of the earlier videos, but you know, here's the fuel filter, fuel lines going into the fuel injection system. Here's the throttle, governor, air intake, and goes right into the 3 cylinders over there. You see that? It's amazing. I call this thing a shoebox engine because my hand pretty much, well, mostly covers this engine. So anyway, let me see what I can do here. I'll bring you guys back once I figure something out. If I do have to drop this deck, it's doable. It's just a lot more work, and I was hoping for this to be quick and easy. And actually, you know what? Hold on a second, because one of the things that I do have over there that I didn't show you was those jack stands. And what I may do is I may jack up the front end and put the front end on jack stands. Actually, I think I did show you the jack stands, didn't I? So if I were to lift this thing up, say, I don't know, 6 inches, it would drop the deck down 6 inches further. Because, you know, the deck is dynamic. It can go down further than what it is. I don't know how much, but it would all have to be figured out. Worst comes to worst, I'll undo the deck and deal with it. So stand by. I'll be right back. Okay, so after much deliberation, I'm not sure if the solution I came up with is going to work, but I'm sure going to try it just because this is the first time I'm doing this. So everything looks wrong to me. I guess this is where experience and confidence comes from. In doing something over and over enough times that you can do it with your eyes closed. So hopefully, if this works out, this will become a new standard operating procedure for me moving forward. So without jacking the tractor up and without putting it on jack stands, I just feel like that's a questionable safety offense for me, being that I really don't have any level ground. The only level ground I do have is the garage floor, and there's just too much stuff in there to effectively work in there. I have literally enough stuff to park the tractor, but to, kneel next to it or lay down next to it to wrench on it, it's just not feasible. So let me show you what I got here, and maybe this will help you decide what you want to do, as you do your maintenance on it. So this, I'm going to say just the waste oil collector, because it's not really the jug that's going to store the oil. But essentially, I just stuck it in like this. So if you look closely, the drain plug is right here at the end of my index finger. And if you look in here, here's the red stopper for the main drain of the tub. You can see it right here. This guy. Okay, so the oil drain is index finger, and my middle finger is on the drain plug for this waste oil container. You can kind of see that there. They almost line up. Now my question is this part down here enough to hold all of the oil that's inside this pan without overflowing, without causing, a shout out to the Exxon Valdez way back when? We're going to find out. I don't know, but let me get some wrenches, figure out what size that is, and then I guess we'll just drain it, because that's all we can do. We'll drain it, we'll change the filter on the other side, and we'll go from there. So, give me a minute. I'll set you up over there. Okay, so now I feel like I'm having a picnic with Kubo, and I'll explain here in a minute. So, as you can see, I've upgraded my kneeling capacity to an old yoga mat that I found in the garage. I hope my wife is not hoping to use this again, because after today it may be destroyed, because it looks pretty weathered. And yeah, so if you're watching this, honey, I'm sorry, but I'm probably going to destroy this thing. If worse comes to worse, we'll get another one. But anyway, so first thing I'm going to do is, and ironically this comes out really easy from that little spot, I'm going to pull this plug out, so that way I'm not pouring oil into something that I can't drain effectively. So I'm going to park this right here. I'm going to show you in a second. But because I'm not certain what size that bolt is, I got an assortment of wrenches. These are metric, from 12 to 15 millimeters. One of them I hope will work. I'm guessing it's the 14 millimeter, but I can't really see down there, so let's take a look. All right. I know it's not the best shot, but we're gonna try it. I really cannot see. Let me slide down a little bit. All right, let's see what we got here. You know what? First guess. It's a 14 millimeter. So let me, I'll tell you what, let me crack this thing loose, and then we'll go inside and check it out. because I don't know. I think they either painted that bolt on or did something to it because it's incredibly stuck on. Oh, let me get back down here. I guess the other question is, am I closing it further? Or because I would think that, you know what, I'm an idiot. You know, this whole time I'm sitting here righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, but I'm not applying it correctly. I was applying it from the point of view of the oil pan, not the bolt. So I went and made that tighter. Let me see if I can get a better leverage. And actually, I can't push this in further because of the front drive line that's in the way. Boy, there is zero room here. Let me see if I can pull it towards me. Let's go. Yeah, I cracked it. Let's see if I can do this. You know what? I did say that I got gloves, didn't I? And here I am doing all of this without gloves. One moment. Okay, I'm back. I got my gloves on. Okay, let's continue with the 14 millimeter. Oh. Let me see if that's enough to turn it. Still nothing leaking. Okay, baby. You know what? I just realized that there's nothing in the bottom of this pan to catch this plug and washer when it drops down. So I am going to risk getting oil all over myself. I got it. There it is. Not too shabby. And you know what? It's flowing in the right spot. Here, let me show you. Get this glove off because it's covered in oil. There it goes. You know what I should do? And I recommend you do it too, is you open up the oil fill cap up top. But I'm afraid that if I do it, this thing's going to flow too fast and it's going to overflow. Instead of flowing into the drain, it'll just overflow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just let this thing drain. Once it's done draining, I will replace that drain plug, and I'm going to just cinch it down. Nothing crazy. I'm not going to do I'm not going to do a torque spec on it. It's not necessary. But yeah, I kind of like how it's surging here. Now that the sun kind of went behind a cloud or something, you can kind of see how it's surging there. It's like boo, boo, and it's giving it enough time to run into the drain hole. So yeah, sorry about the potentially bad shots, but you can see how difficult this is. There isn't much space to work around in. So yeah, I'll keep watching this. I hope it doesn't overflow. There's quite a bit of volume in here that it can hold. So I hope it'll hold everything that's coming out of it. So give me a moment. We'll be right back. I adjusted this collection tray a little bit so you can see it maybe a little bit better. I don't know if that's possible with it being so bright out here. But yeah, she's draining right into the hole, so this is kind of a good positioning for it. And who knows, maybe this is really the way people do things. I don't know, but it seems to be working. I just hope I have enough capacity in this to cover all of the oil that's in this engine. So we'll see. All right, so I don't know if you can see that, but it's just streaming out thin little hairs of oil now. It's not, gushing out like it was. So to answer the question of whether or not it'll all fit, it will. So I'm glad that worked out. I don't know if you could see that. So forgive me if it's just a little too bright out here, but it's the best I can do right now. But suffice it to say, this was enough capacity to store all of that oil. So I'll let this drip for a few minutes. I've got some messages on my phone that I'm going to check out while this is continuing to drip. Once it's done, we'll put this plug back in and I'll bring you back for that. So stand by. One of the things as I'm laying here on the ground, I found it interesting, and I just saw it for the first time ever. And I don't think it's specific just to this engine, but to all diesels. But the EPA, I don't know, probably about 10 years ago or so, the EPA came down on VW for skirting emissions in a lot of places, and they paid a huge fine, and part of that was to invest in electric infrastructure for EVs, but also at the same time they were ordered to make diesel engines cleaner. I got ants crawling on me, so forgive me if I randomly decide to go skittish on you. But anyway, what I was doing as I was getting ready to, look at the drain plug and make sure that it was all good, no damage and whatnot, which it's not damaged. I'll show you here. There's the drain plug. I'm gonna come at it from a different angle because of the way the sun is. But outside of it being dirty, it's no big deal. I got some shop towels over there. But this is the reason why I wanted you to see this. On this mat, you can actually see some oil. And in that oil, you can actually see soot particulates. I mean, that's what makes the oil black to begin with. But if you kind of smear them out, they're getting stuck to the mat. And that to me is pretty impressive, because these soot particles are fairly large. You can actually kind of see them at the end of the bolt too here. I just wiped them away, but that's all like carbon soot. And that's what they were trying to work on to get, these emissions cleaner. Now, this engine here is so small that it doesn't make a difference. Also, it's not driven, hundreds of miles a day or potentially thousands of miles a month or whatever. like a car would be, or like a truck or whatnot. But nevertheless, you know, this small engine, you know, falls under that same, you know, that same category of burning stuff. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's a little tiny diesel, but it still suffers the same inherent limitations that diesel engines ultimately, you know, burn a little bit dirtier. But, you know, that there's really no but. You know, I can't, I don't want to be that guy. I also don't want to be political right now. But, you know, diesel engines are, in my opinion, far more superior than gasoline engines just because of their efficiency. You know, if you could take a gallon of diesel and a gallon of gasoline and go potentially, I don't know, 30 miles more per gallon on the diesel than you can with the gasoline, well, that's a huge difference, and that means that you're going much further with less fuel ultimately. Actually, you're going much further with the same amount of fuel you would with a car that, you know, burned all of its, you know, gasoline behind you somewhere. So I remember getting 64 miles to the gallon on my Jetta. But that Jetta, you know, had a diesel particulate filter, which was designed to attract this carbon soot, and it meant to filter it out. And then every once in a while, it would do a regeneration cycle where it would burn. It would burn that soot at incredibly high temperatures, and effectively it would oxidize it to the point where it was no longer toxic. At least that's what my understanding is. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm pretty sure it's done dripping. I'm going to put this plug back in, cinch it down, and then I'm going to show you where the fill port is, because I just want to get this done. It's getting hot out here. I thought I'd get this done before it got hot, but here we are. Here I am yapping. So let's do this. All right, I plugged that up. I had to put some paper towels down on the ground because there was still just a couple of drops dripping from down here. Let's make sure that that's clean. All right, let's move on to the next thing. All right, so here's the collection container. I would say it's about maybe a quarter of the way full. It doesn't feel that heavy, but you can see that a lot more oil has leaked into this drain. So I'm gonna open this back up and let it all drain down into the hole, at least as much as it'll go. I'll also later go and clean this up with a shop towel. So I'll just leave this open for now. This is all waste oil anyway. So yeah, let me set you down here for a second. Let me get this glove off. I will say that these gloves fit great until you start sweating just a little bit, because then things get crazy. So let me put these in the garbage. And yeah, let me get my stuff off the ground here so it doesn't cook. My mats and stuff. put it in here. All right. Okay. Let me set you down for a second. I think we're about done here, so let me put this back in here, like so. Okay. Wipe that off. Take it to the trash can. All right. Okay, let me move this over here so it's out of the way. I have to manage that later on. Okay, real talk. Oh, let me get out of that bright light so you can see me a little bit better. There we are. Hello. Okay, so real talk. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being absolutely incredibly difficult and 1 being, you know, walk in the park, I would say this is probably about a 4, maybe a 5 in terms of difficulty. A lot of it has to do with the fact that everything's so small. I'm a big guy too, so it kind of it's a moot point. But the concept of doing this is identical to that of doing it on a internal combustion engine on a car. I used to do all of my own oil changes when I had my TDI, my Jetta TDI, before I had my first Bolt EV, because the services were pretty expensive at like normal shops. That, you know, they would have to order special oil because, you know, there has to be like a special blend of oils that helps with the soot and, you know, helps with the longevity of the operation of the engine and stuff like that. So VW designed at least at that time it was a 2012 Jetta TDI. The oil filter was on top, and you could use right through the oil filter housing. You can put it all the way in. Actually, no, I lied. Take that back. Through the oil filter housing, you would be able to pull the whole canister off and replace the oil filter and put it back on. But what you could do is through the dipstick tube for the oil, you could actually suck the oil out by putting a vacuum, like either a pneumatic or a manual pump that would suck out the oil. And then you would just store it and recycle it. And I used to do that in these jugs. Like this is a 5-gallon waste oil jug that you can use either in food service or in automotive applications such as this. So, going back to the scale. So yeah, I would give this a 4, maybe a 5. You don't really need to know anything about engines. You just need to know process. So, you know, you need to drain the oil, and you also need to know the operation around that. So make sure that the tractor is on level ground or vehicle is on level ground. You know, make sure that you can get your waste oil receptacle in there. Make sure that you use a waste oil, you know, pan or some kind of a jar or something to capture that oil, because, you know, you don't want it going into the ground. You don't want it getting into, you know, well water or, you know, something else. Like we have that that utility lake that's back behind our house. You know, there's no way that I would let any of this oil drip down there. In fact, I will treat the concrete with probably some cat litter just to absorb as much of that as possible, and then you know, wipe it up and put it in the trash. So what was I saying? Once you're kind of familiar with the process, you need a 14 millimeter wrench. That's what did it for me here. So if you don't have that, then you have to make a choice of whether you're going to buy it or just take the vehicle in. A lot of people, I guess it's just society these days, they'll look for convenience. And I do too, I'll be honest with you. Convenience is huge for me, especially when it comes to certain things that, you know, test my patience. Today, it's kind of a, you know, a really nice day outside. It's 71 degrees right now, and it's actually getting hotter. It's only 11 o'clock, but it'll probably be closer to 80 today. So I'm trying to get this done. I'm only going to do the oil today. We'll do the hydraulic stuff another day because it's only a filter replacement. And even then, they told me it's not really required. But nevertheless, it's in the manual, so I'm going to do it. I'm probably just going to do it closer to the 50-hour mark. The engine I'm a little bit more picky about because with the intake, you know, pulling in air from the outside, I don't want any of the pollen, dirt, dust, and debris or whatever that's floating around the tractor when I'm mowing to get sucked into the engine, because the first place that goes is, you know, into the cylinder, and then it, you know, it either burns off or the rings of the piston will scrape it down into the oil pan. So, you know, there's that. And this was a pretty hefty chunk of change that I spent on this whole mower. So I'm going to follow the recommendations as best as possible and just make sure that, you know, you cover all your bases and do it, you know, in the right way. So, okay, we know how to drain the oil because we just did that. How do you fill it? Well, that's the easiest part. You get a funnel, which I have funnels over there on my toolbox. I'm going to get one that's got a longer fill neck, probably that red one that's over there. And I'll show you where the oil fill is, which is on the top of the engine. And then what you have to do is you have to watch the dipstick. So I typically don't go by what's written in a document because, and here, this is my disclaimer. Do with it as you please, but, you know, obviously this is what I do. This works for me. Whenever I do oil changes, I use common sense. So I know there's a specific capacity that the engine will hold, and that information is written in the owner's manual. And for every vehicle, make or model of tractor or whatever, it's going to be different. Usually, unless the engines are identical. But whatever is written for this will be what my baseline is. Because when you pour it in, like let's say it takes 4 quarts. So it takes this gallon of oil that I have here, right? All of this goes in. Odds are not all of this will go in. Like I would think that maybe this is like a 3.5 to 3 3/4 quart engine, because it's a small 3-cylinder. It probably doesn't need a whole ton of engine oil in it, but nevertheless, put it in, start the engine, let it run for 5-10 seconds, let that oil start circulating in all the passages, you know, every place that it dripped out of while it was turned off, and you know, then pull the dipstick and check your level, wipe it off, you know, dip it, check your level, wipe it off, do it maybe 2, maybe 3 times. I do it twice, and typically that's enough. If it's low on the dipstick, add more. Add more. Add until the dipstick says full. That's all you can do. That way you know that you have the proper amount of oil in the engine, and that no matter which, you know, geometry the tractor is, you know, what angle it's banking at or whatever, you know that there's always going to be oil at the bottom of the pan for the oil pickup to have to suck into the engine. So you want to make sure that that's solid. Engines cannot run without oil. So for those who don't know about engines, and I have my high school shop teacher, um, Mr. Beck, to thank for this. I only had him for a few months for intro to automotive, my ninth grade year, but let me tell you something, that man's wisdom stuck around. Um, the cylinders are, they're round cylinders, right? Picture taking a 2-liter bottle of Coke, just, maybe in this case, like a 20-ounce bottle of Coke, cutting the ends off so that you have a perfect cylinder. Inside that cylinder, you have a piston that goes up and down, right? It goes up, boom, comes back down, and then, through natural operations of the engine, the piston will move up and down, and every time it's at the top, it'll, on a 2-stroke, it'll pop every time it's at the top. On a 4-stroke, it goes up, down, it goes boom, down, up, down, boom, up. Yeah, so every other up. Never mind. Suffice it to say, these pistons, they don't touch the walls of the cylinders. They are literally kept in place by the piston rings. The piston rings are what actually rides along the surface of the oil that's on the cylinder wall. And as it's going up and down, the rings scrape the oil back down, and as it goes up, more oil replaces the oil that got scraped, and it's a rinse and repeat. And you cannot run an engine without oil and expect it to survive. You will grenade the engine. And what I mean by that, it will sound like a grenade just went off under your hood. It'll just go doof, and sometimes you'll even get a nice window or a patio screen door in the side of your engine where you can actually see, the rods, the crank, everything. You don't want that because that's a engine replacement. There's no coming back from that. And you can't say oops and expect it to go away. So oil changes are absolutely paramount. And you know what? I talked to somebody recently, and this is my last kind of, chat about this part. I talked to a service advisor at a dealership. I'm not going to say which one because I don't want him to get, I don't want anybody to get in trouble for anything that they say. But he made a good point, and the point was as follows: manufacturers of engine oil and certain even engines will increase the service interval of oil in an engine, and those numbers are done without consideration of the environment, meaning that the same service intervals are required for somebody who might live in northern Alaska where it's cold all year round versus somebody who lives in Texas or Florida where it's 70, 80 degrees all year round. I guess certain parts of Texas might fall into that. But there's no saying, hey, if you live in Alaska, you should change your oil every so many miles. And if you live in Florida, you should change your oil so many miles. I really, have my own preferences, but I will tell you that my personal preference, and do with this as you please, I'm not making any recommendations to anybody, and, feel free to do this at your own risk. I will not be held responsible for any engines getting grenaded, so please understand that. But I always do my oil changes early. I very rarely miss a service interval where oil change is involved. I will let, coolant service, AC service, transmission service or all of that, I'll let that go. Maybe 1,000 miles here or there. Oil? No, sir. On engines that require it every 10,000 miles, like Toyota does on some of their cars, they'll tell you, do your oil change every 10,000 miles. No, don't do that. do it every 5,000, 7,500 miles, because A, the manufacturer has no clue of how that engine's being driven. Neither does the repair shop that you take it to. All they know is when they pull the drain plug and your oil looks like chocolate syrup, or, I mean, diesel engines, it'll always look black. You will always have black oil, 30 seconds after you start the engine first time. This oil, gold. Once you put it in there, black, no matter what. But a gasoline-powered car should never, ever, ever have black oil in it, like dark black. It's, you can take a dipstick out, smell it. If it smells burned, you're done. That typically indicates overheating, and you don't want that either. That's a engine rebuild waiting to happen. But as far as those manufacturers say, oh, hey, do us every 10,000 miles. No, thank you. I'll do it 7,500, maybe 5,000 miles, and that's it. I know that there's some people that are going to say, well, engine oil has advanced in time, and we're no longer bound by the confines of what conventional engine oil was in like the 80s, maybe even 70s or further back. I get that. So has engine technology, and engines burn a lot cleaner now than they did back then. And as such, there's much tighter tolerances in the engine. The machining is much more precise. And, although you can get a lot more out of a smaller engine now than you could out of a large engine way back when, the need for oil, and this is the part that always gets me, is that if you're dealing with a fluid that breaks down over time, it should be hours. It should be measured in hours, not miles, because my engine could be running 30 hours a week on idle, sitting in traffic, like I used to in California. That engine would still be spinning, it would still be generating heat, it would still be doing its thing while not moving. So therefore, no mileage is getting added to the odometer. So if I'm looking at 10,000 miles on the odometer and I'm dealing with traffic and I'm dealing with all these other variables that are beyond my control, then yeah, there's no way I'm going to wait until 10,000 miles. Certain areas need to have a much tighter timetable. And I believe, just like this guy right here, just like Kubo, engine hours should be measured in engine hours, not miles. Therefore, service intervals should be in hours on the clock for the engine. There should be a little gauge somewhere, even if it's under the hood, that says, oh, this engine has run for 50 hours. Great, 50-hour check. What's in the manual? Oh, okay, at 50 hours I need to do this, 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 and this. Done. Call up the dealer, get online, whatever, order your supplies, have it delivered to you, and then you either do it yourself or you take it to them and they do it for you. Just my opinion, and I'm going to stop the rant right there because I could probably go on about this for another 2 hours. And mind you, I'm not an expert in this. This is just experience that I've been taught by other people who have successfully driven, Toyota engines past 1 million miles, or Honda engines past 750,000 miles. Some of these cars are ridiculous. They're like 30, 35 years old. Excuse me. And they have more miles on them than I will ever drive on a car. For some reason, I can't get a car past. I got a 98 Jetta TDI, a 1998 model, over 300,000 miles. That's it. So these guys that are driving their gasoline engines way, way higher than that, I tend to listen to them because they're going to tell me, oh, we do regular oil changes, every, what is it, 6 months, regardless whether the car's driven or not. Okay, good call. It might sound like a waste, it might sound like overkill, but you know what? Those are the engines that are not in a landfill somewhere. So, or in a car crusher. So, okay, let me go get the funnel. Let's get everything going here. We're going to pour this fluid in, and actually we're going to also change the filter. Can't forget that, because the filter is what keeps contaminants out of the engine. So let's do that. Let me go get a pair of gloves on. Let me dry my hands off first. I'm going to go inside, get some water. But then when I come out, we'll get the filter. We'll get the funnel, we'll get the gloves, and we'll take this bottle, and I'll show you where to pour it. I'll show you where the dipstick is. So thanks a lot for being here with me on this little journey. This is the first time I've ever serviced a Kubota before, but in true automotive fashion, the theory is the same. So, okay, let's do this. Okay, so I'm back out here, and let me show you what's what. So, right here is the oil fill on top of this cover here, and then right down here, you see this filter. I hope I don't have to remove this hose to get it. I'm going to try my darndest to just twist this off and be done with it. Right here is the dipstick. Okay, there it is. Right behind the alternator, between the exhaust manifold right here and the alternator right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to try to not have to remove the air cleaner assembly. Actually, the air cleaner is right back here. So my guess is that this is just... Let's go on the other side and figure out what that is. Okay, so, I see. So this is the actual intake. You can see, because it connects to the intake manifold here. This thing sucks air in through here. It's kind of filtered by this screen, and then there's a particulate filter in here, and then it goes right into the intake there. So we don't need to worry about that. I hope that one of the funnels I have is long enough to reach that. I think so. I definitely think so. But my question now is, where do I put you guys so you can see? Oh wow, that's a conundrum all in its own. I think first things first is we're gonna do that oil filter. So we're probably gonna set you guys right here on the axle. Ooh, that's gonna be a bad shot. Let me know if that works for you guys. Let me get my knee pad so I can see what's happening here. So, all right, I'm gonna use a shop towel here for extra grip. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some towels down here, because I don't want any of this to drip when I pull back. Let me see if I can do this without... Nope, can't get leverage. You know what that means? We're going to get my new tool. We're going to get the Oil pliers. Oil filter pliers. Alright. Alright. So I got this. The question is, will it fit? Oh, wow. That baby is tight. I had to reposition the camera a little bit because this filter's on here tight. And I mean, she tight. Okay. Here's a trick of it. And I don't know if it was just me, but you could see that I ate that oil filter up pretty good with the wrench. There's no way that I would have gotten that off with my hand, judging by how tough that was. I don't know how they put that on. I don't know if it was done by hand or I don't know. It doesn't really matter. All I know is that it is a righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So going left was what loosened it. It's loose enough that it started dripping oil a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the other oil filter on. I'm going to get my gloves on, and we're going to do this step by step. By the way, if I didn't mention it earlier when I was telling you guys about the process, oil filter is always the next step after draining the oil. You can actually take off the oil filter as you're draining, but that'll allow air to get into the system, and so your oil will drain faster, just like as if you pulled the dipstick out or opened the oil fill cap. It wouldn't do the spurts like it did when I was under there. And I kind of like that because it allowed the oil to kind of collect in the collection tray, if you will, without overflowing or making a huge mess. It was kind of a slower drain, which I liked. So I'm going to continue to do that for the foreseeable future. But here's what we're going to do. This filter is loose. Actually, you can kind of see it dripping on this drive shaft right here. Well, this isn't the drive shaft. This is just the cover. Drive shaft's underneath it. But you can see it's dripping there from here. And then it's also dripping on that paper towel down there. So I'm going to set you guys back here. I have you guys sitting on a cooler so we can have some drinks and, talk about life, the questionable choices we make. But first, let me go get the other filter, the new filter, and also the funnel and the new oil, since we're going to probably do this in one swing. The sun is almost at high noon. It's actually 11:38, so it's funny how I was able to tell. But yeah, it's getting hot out here. I'm definitely getting my workout in. I know it doesn't seem like much. It doesn't seem like I'm moving that much. But, working on anything like this, does take effort. And, moving around, getting stuff, making sure you don't, cause the Exxon Valdez to replay itself, all these decades later. So keeping the oil out of the environment, that all takes just effort and energy, and as such, in the heat, you get a workout. You feel like you're doing a jog or something. So let me get this stuff, and I'll be right with you guys. All right, I'm back. So I got the funnel with the longest nozzle that I could find. Here's the new filter. Here's the gallon jug of oil. But we're gonna do this slowly and systematically. So I do have a plastic bag here from Harbor Freight. That's going to essentially be my old oil filter storage. So I'm going to put the old oil filter back into the box that the new filter came in. And I'm going to make sure that it's sealed off nicely, so that way I can, recycle it and take it to where it needs to go. Okay, so I have been hacking at this oil filter now for a while, and I should be able to get in here with my hand and take it off. There's still oil dripping down to the paper towel that's down there. Boy, this is a very, very long screw. Okay, there's the oil filter, and into the box it goes. Let me set this down so that I can close it without getting my clean hand dirty. Using the shop towel, I'll just wipe off the oil that spilled on the outside of the bag. And now that there's oil on the outside of the plastic bag too, I'm going to just flip it inside out. So, and what I am going to do, I'm going to leave this glove on because I want to put some of this oil onto the seal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put my finger in there. You always want to put a little bit of oil on the new filter. That way the sealed, this black O-ring doesn't get all gummed up. And one of the things you want to make sure is that the old O-ring's not stuck to it, because you can't have two of these stuck on side by side. And then you just screw it on. One of the things I will do when I'm done and cleaned up is I'll write the hours on the filter when this was installed. So that way, if there's any doubt, you'll be able to look just at the oil filter housing, and you'll be able to see exactly when. Let me get. I may need to rethink how I do this, because I think that I could do this a little bit better without causing so much oil spill. I mean, considering this is the first time I've done this, it's not horribly bad. It's not great, but can't see if there's any other place that got oil. Oh yeah, I can see it. I'm using the oil filter wrench to just clean that off a little bit. So I recommend these shop towels because they don't rip so easily. They don't fray. They don't, like if you get normal paper towels wet, they'll dissolve on you essentially. But with those, you can, I just got them cleaning that area down there and it didn't rip one bit. All right. So, yeah, I'll just write the hours right on it here with a Sharpie once I fill it up and give it a test run. So, let's continue. Let me figure out where to place you guys for a better view. Okay, I think this is the best I'm going to be able to do here. So, I mentioned earlier that the dipstick is right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first I'm going to get rid of this B because I'm not feeling like I need to get stung today. Let's do this. All right, let's pull the dipstick out and we just wipe it off just to get it all clean. So I'll show you right here. There are 2 holes that the oil needs to be between for safe operation of this engine. As close to this hole as possible. Okay, that's where it needs to be. And that's where we're going to have it. We're going to have it somewhere right around here. Okay, so we're going to reinstall the dipstick, which we did. It's in all the way. Make sure that it's in all the way. And then I'm going to use the shop towel. All right. So I removed the oil fill cap. That was easy enough. Make sure the funnel is clean. You don't want crap in there. You know what? I don't think this red funnel is going to work there. Hang on a second. Let me get the smaller yellow one. This yellow one work? Yeah. It's going to be interesting though because I have to somehow pour a gallon of oil into this. They could have moved this someplace else. Honestly. Ugh. And I don't have one of those bottles that can pour oil from a distance. I wish I did, but I don't. All right, so let's do this. I hope you guys can see this okay, because I'm probably not going to have another chance at this. So I'm going to pour. Oh no. I leaked some oil. I'll have to wipe that up. The funnel came out of okay. Let me put this down over here so it's clean. Let me get a shop towel here. and wipe off everything, because all this oil is going to burn on this engine, and it's going to smell like it's on fire. I think I dripped some on the headers, so I think I'm going to have burning oil smell for a while. All right, so what I'm going to do is, now that I've put that in, I'm actually going to move you guys. Give me just 1 second. Put you guys about right there. You guys are actually sitting on the muffler, so I know you can't see me very well, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take paper towel, 1 sheet. We're going to take the dipstick and wipe it off. We don't care about the first one, because that one was done by splashing. So this is going to be the second time. It's still low, so I'm going to add some more. What did I do with the funnel? Oh, put it over here. I don't know if you can see that, but that's gold colored. It's not black or anything like that. Let me see what my oil level is now with the dipstick. I'll wipe it off. All right, we are at about, I would say, 3/4. So I'm gonna give it some more. It's good. Keep it flowing. I'm sure I'll end up putting most of this bottle in there because I lost so much oil. Do a dipstick check. Let's wipe it off as you're pulling it. I believe I'm right on the money. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you guys off of the muffler, and I'm going to start the engine, let it run for a little bit. But first, I'm going to close this because you don't want to start an engine with the oil cap off, because it'll just probably make a mess. And I don't want any more messes here. I got enough. Okay. I'll grab the keys. Okay, before I make all this noise, this tractor has 42.8 hours on it. So, yeah. All right, let's start her up. All right, that was about 10, maybe 15 seconds. I just noticed that there's a bunch of oil on the block right there that I'm going to clean off here in a second. But first, I'm going to check the dipstick one more time. So here, you guys stay right there. Can you see good? I hope so, because I can't see the screen. Let's see where we're at. So we were right at that second hole, that upper hole right here, before I started the engine. In theory, and what I'm hoping is that this oil level dropped a little bit as it circulated in the engine. It's still at the second hole. So I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can turn this around a little bit. But see, the oil is clear. It's not sooty yet. Once we put it under load, this will start sitting up real good. So let me get this in here. Oh, one of the things I feel the need to point out is, for those who noticed, that engine took quite a few revolutions to crank, and that's because I didn't glow it up. So diesel engines require temperature to combust the fuel. So it's called auto combustion. And it's auto combustion because you don't need a spark to fire the engine. I think that's pretty much all I'm going to get off of that block. All the other oil is just going to have to burn off. And it will in time. And I actually have a little bit of oil left in there. About half a quart or so. So, yeah. I lost my train of thought there for a second, but I'm sure it'll come back to me here in a minute. The cranking. So because I just went right for, cranking instead of going to the glow plugs and then starting it. So diesel engines don't have spark plugs in them. They operate on a concept called auto ignition or auto combustion, where the pressure that's created in the cylinder chamber of the piston moving towards the top of the top dead center, it will actually create enough heat to spontaneously combust the fuel. So as air's injected, or as air's sucked into the engine, this doesn't have a turbo on it, so it's naturally aspirated, and fuel is shot in under high pressure, it immediately, combusts. But you have to get the temperature up, so you need to do a few, revolutions on the crank before the cylinders can generate enough temperature to fire the engine. Now, if I started, it'll start up like nothing. So, but yeah, we can check for leaks. I don't see any leaks. So now that that's running, I'm actually going to let it run until it gets up to operating temperature. And then I'm going to drive it for a few minutes just to make sure everything's okay. Make sure that there's no drops, of oil or anything leaking underneath. I'll back it out, make sure, it's over here where there's no drops or anything. And if there's, a leak, I can fix it. But that's essentially it. What we did We drained the oil, we took off the filter, we put on a new filter, and then we filled it. And that's it. You know, we've been doing this. It took me about 2 hours to do. Nothing crazy. But, you know, again, going back to what I said earlier about the difficulty scale, I would have to rate this at probably a 4, maybe 3 if you're a little bit inclined, or if you're a tinkerer, you're good with tools and stuff like that, then maybe it's no big deal. I'm good with tools, but it is what it is. So the reason I had to do this was because I don't have a trailer, and I have no way of getting this tractor to the dealership down in Newberry. So it would have cost me a lot more money to do that, to rent a trailer, you know, do the whole U-Haul thing or whatever, use my wife's car for the day. I didn't want to do that. That's inconvenience. So we'll let this thing roll. It's already getting some temperature. Again, I'm going to write 42.8 on that filter as soon as I get a Sharpie. There should be one in here somewhere. But that's it. I'll come back with you to close this video out after I put the mower away. So stick around. All right, everybody, that is it for this video. I am sticking with my original assessment of difficulty, that this job was probably a 3 or 4 on the 0 through 10 scale. I think if you have a Saturday or Sunday, maybe a 2-hour block of peace and quiet, you should be able to knock this out. The only recommendation I would make is, if you plan on doing this job with the deck attached, pull onto a tarp, and that will help, prevent any accidental spills or anything like that. There would be a lot more space underneath here if this deck wasn't here, but this deck weighs a lot, and I wasn't about to, wrestle it in and out. There's no point. I felt like I could do it as long as the little collection pan, the oil drain tray, or whatever you want to call it, as long as it fits underneath there and you can collect all your oil, I think it's fine. Not much of a spill. I got, obviously some oil that dripped down along the side of the engine. Also, some oil came out of the filter housing when I pulled the old filter off. So that's what happened there, and I have to clean it up. My little paper towel wasn't enough, so that's why I recommend some kind of a plastic or something that you can just roll up and put in a trash bag and take it to a recycling facility, especially if you get a lot of oil on it. As far as the tractor goes, we just went around the block. I got it up to operating temperature, and it did really well. I think I drove it at full speed and almost full throttle. I drove it at 3,000 RPMs for about 5 minutes, and no leaks, no strange noises or anything like that. So I think this oil change was a success. And now the only thing that's left is I clean all this up, I bag it, and I find a Sharpie to write 42.8 on the filter, because that's the hours that it was installed at. That way, if there's any question or doubt or whatever besides watching this video, I can just look on the filter housing. That's it. I want to thank each and every single one of you for joining me here today. My dog Duchess over there, she's actually she's asleep in the grass, which is also interesting because she's usually right in between my legs trying to, learn all she can about what it is that I do. And yeah, it's getting windy. It was supposed to get hot, but it's not getting hot. Clouds are coming in, and there's a cool breeze. So I'm going to get everything picked up before it blows around, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.